I want to welcome everybody to our next installment of our virtual internship series. My name is Danny Rubin. I'm the founder of our company. We're called Rubin, and we provide an online curriculum for business communication skills. And we're so glad to have you here today to learn about a new career field, this time the world of real estate. And we have some excellent guests today, lots of experience. Will show us the real estate side and the mortgage lending side and how both sides come together to help people buy and sell homes. So we're thankful to have Colby Raymond here from Tidewater Home Funding and Lety Pena from Howard Hanna. And we will get to them in just a few moments. I want to also introduce Mac Dowd from the Rubin team. She'll be hanging out in the chat. And also Nicolette Velazquez, who you may have seen at previous sessions. She's a sign language interpreter, and we're grateful to have her as well. And show us in the chat who is here for the first time and who's been here before. And as you do that, I'm going to share my screen. And for those who are new, for some of the new educators here, I'll offer some resources that you might want to use if you don't have them yet. And I want to say welcome to Karen Klein from Phoenix, streaming live to my financial services students in 5 minutes. It's great. So we have some repeat customers, some first timers. Great. So for those who have not been here, if you have, you've seen this offer. If not, then I want to make sure you have it. Let me get my chat going. So as a company, we teach students effective business communication skills. And one thing we put together to help the teachers for the rest of this year and for next year is a Google folder of worksheets and presentations, like learning the parts of an email or why you should capitalize I. Teachers, show of hands, how many of your students send messages with all the I's lowercase, like a text? See some hands going up for that. Professional text messaging, signing your name in cursive, presentations and worksheets for these topics, all in a Google folder. Okay. That's just easy to access and use. And in addition, we have a online presentation checklist to help students and teachers learn how to present, how to prepare, what to say, how to stand, how to speak, a good checklist before you go live, so to speak, in a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, whatever it is. So for the teachers who would, and thank Katie Ann says, 4th webinar attended. Well, thank you for being here 4 times. For those who are first timers and don't have these resources yet, please go to the chat, type interested and your email address, and we will pass along these resources. What we love to do whenever possible is have a brief phone call to learn about your school and your class and help you make the most of this material for your students. So if you don't have it yet, interested in your email address, and we'll make sure you get it in the next couple of days. And we'll mention it again at the end for those who may miss it the first time, but please feel free to request it. We'd love to give it to you and help you teach these skills to your students within your classes. Also, for those who will watch this in the future with the recording and you would like these resources too, please just email us at support@rubineducation.com with the subject line Rubin Worksheets, and we'll get it to you that way since you weren't here live for the initial offer. A couple other things to mention while we're here. We have one more virtual internship of the school year. It's going to be on May 20th at 12:30 Eastern, so an hour earlier. And we're exploring the world of agriculture with 2 great guests who do very different things. Ryan Fleischer works for ButcherBox. You may have seen their TV commercials. It's like home delivery of meat and seafood. And Alex Martson runs his own family farm breeding Scottish Highland cattle in Oregon. So we're going to talk to both of them about working in different aspects of the world of agriculture. So please keep an eye out for those emails in the coming days and join us and tell your teachers. Anybody here interested in this topic, by the way? I know we're here for real estate, but anybody find this topic interesting? Would want to tell your other teachers or bring some students? We'd love to have you for our final one of the year on the 20th. And lastly, everyone here today, we're going to pass out a certificate tomorrow morning for teachers and students completing the session today, sorry, that is actually the one for next time. You'll get the one for real estate tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to use that on your portfolio, on your resume, anywhere you'd like. So keep an eye out for the real estate certificate tomorrow morning for everybody who's here live right now and the students who are watching through teachers' screens. Thank you for those who requested free resources. One last thing to share, and then we'll bring in our guests. I'm going to bring up my screen. So just for those of you who are new here, kind of learning about this Rubin company that invited you today. So again, we are an online curriculum provider. The curriculum is called Emerge, and it's a big library of how-to topics for various communication skills, email etiquette, life skills, phone and video etiquette lessons, networking skills, resumes, cover letters, internship and job outreach, email practice, LinkedIn practice, job interview skills. We also do entrepreneurship communication, sales writing, website pages, PR, fundraising, all about writing and speaking. And finally, leadership skills, writing as a manager, writing to clients, project management, public speaking, writing reports and summaries to your boss, to your team, and also exercises for student leaders. So let's go ahead and bring our two guests back in. Hopefully they're still with us here. I had them turn off their screens. There they are. As we bring them in, let us know, teachers, those of you who are new here, are you an advisor to any CTSOs, Skills USA or FBLA or DECA or whatever you got going on? Let us know in the chat. We have Nicole with FBLA. Make sure you're doing all panelists and attendees as your chat setting, so we know we can all see what you're writing. So a lot of good resources in our program for CTSOs, for class, and everything integrates to your LMS like Canvas, Schoology, Google Classroom, Blackboard, and Moodle. Business Professionals of America from Cheryl with a bunch of exclamations. So, all right, with all that said, thanks for letting us get through our housekeeping. I want to bring in our special guests today, and they can first introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some questions. I'll start with Colby Raymond from Tidewater Home Funding. So Colby, you are a mortgage lender, and why don't you give us a little bit of your background and how you found yourself in this job and how long you've been doing it and where you are today.
Thanks, Danny, for having me, and hi to everyone out there. It is so great to be here. Again, I'm Colby Raymond. I'm a mortgage lender with Tidewater Home Funding, which is a local lender in the Virginia and North Carolina markets. I started in the business growing up in it. My family's all been in mortgage or real estate. So I graduated from Radford University in 2005. And I got my degree in business with concentrations in a couple of other things as well, and waited until the market kind of settled down after the bubble of 2008, jumped in 2012, and have been here ever since. And my focus is lending for new construction, first-time home buyers, and VA buyers, but I do it all.
And one thing we're big on in our webinars is always asking questions for things we don't understand or terms we're not familiar with. Tell us what a VA buyer is real quick.
A VA buyer is someone who is active duty military, reserve, or a veteran, that they have special lending for mortgages.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, and let's turn it over to Lety Pena. She can introduce herself and then we'll get into some questions. Go ahead, Lety.
Hi, I'm Lety Pena. I'm working out here in Hampton Roads in Virginia. I've been doing real estate since 2010. Prior to that, I worked in the legal field for about 14 years. I love working with people. I've always enjoyed helping people, and real estate just seemed like a different way to do it. And the only thing I regret is not starting sooner. I've truly enjoyed doing this and helping people. I work with buyers and sellers. I don't do a whole lot in new construction, and not big buildings or anything, mostly just single family homes and condos.
Wonderful. We're really glad to have you both here. And the first of all, as I have an initial question for both of them. And as I'm doing that, for the teachers and students, please start putting any of your own questions in the Q&A area of Zoom. If you look on that bottom row, it says Q&A. Please put any questions there and we'll go through the questions and pick out questions. And as you do, please include your name and your school so we can give you credit for the question when we ask it. So go ahead with your questions. And as you do that, I have a couple of questions for our guests. So for the students watching, teachers who have been here before, what do I always start with? What's that R word I always stress with our guests? Anybody know that word? We do it at the start of every one of these interviews that we do. What do we encourage that we do when we meet new people? Isaiah hit it. Research. We do our research, don't we? So let's go and do a little research of our own. So prior to the webinar today, I went to here I'll start with Colby. So as we discussed, so I went to the websites for both of our guests. To there, I Googled their names and it came right up, right? So I'm on Colby's page at Tidewater Home Funding, and it talks about her services and her background. And one thing that caught my eye is this number up here, NMLS 4555342. So Colby, what is an NMLS? Are you there?
NMLS stands for National Mortgage Licensing, whether they be at an independent mortgage bank or a bank, has to have a unique identifier. So that's my personal license number, and you can go online and find everything about me if you just Google NMLS mortgage.
Okay, so that's your sort of personal number as a mortgage lender, shows that you can like legally work in this field and provide loans to people for homes. Okay.
That's
Now,
right.
let me do one more screen share here and go to Lety. So Lety, I'm on your page and I'm seeing some of the homes that you're listing right now. And again, I see another kind of wacky number here, this MLS, these long numbers. What is an MLS? What does that mean?
So when a home gets put on the market, we put it on the multiple listserv, and each home that's listed has its own unique number that's assigned to it, just for the local real estate board to keep track of numbers. So each property has its own unique identifier.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that we probably see these numbers a lot in real estate listings, but we never really know what it means. And again, we want to stress to students that it's okay to ask questions about things you don't understand. And also, let me ask Lety this question. If you were looking for someone to join your team and you were bringing them in for an interview, would you like the fact that they have checked out the Howard Hanna website before the interview? What would that say to you if they already did some reading and learning and had some questions prepared? What would that say to you?
Absolutely. I mean, it just shows how much interest and sincerity they have in wanting to come work for you or work for that particular company.
That's right. We want to help students understand that if you're going for an interview, it's not just about talking about yourself. It's about showing you care about what they do also. Colby, what are your thoughts on people coming in and already knowing about Tidewater Home Funding a little bit before they walk in that door?
I think it gives you one step ahead. You've done your work, you've done your research, and you go in more educated to ask questions about them, not just someone asking you the questions. You have more of an engaging conversation.
That's right. That's right. So we talk teachers, raise your hand if you've said these things before, and you probably said it a million times, teaching students these employability skills, but it helps when people from industry say it too, right? Because that's who we're trying to impress and help students secure opportunities. So thank you both for doing that. And again, we're just always stressing to students the power of doing your homework. It doesn't take very long to do, but it makes a big difference in how people think about us. Okay, so let's get into real estate. And I'm sure that most students would think the only job in real estate is a real estate agent, right? That's selling the homes, but there's a whole mortgage process, which I know very well because my wife works in the business and is a colleague of Colby's. So I hear it all the time. But prior to that, I probably wouldn't know nearly as much. Let's start with Lety. Let's start with, what is your day-to-day like? And kind of what's your process and what are you working on? Give us like a day in the life of a real estate agent, and then we'll talk about the work that Colby does.
It's probably not as exciting and busy as Colby.
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I think
You
probably are.
It does depend on what's going on. Right now, we've got, like we've been talking about, it's definitely a seller's market. We're going around begging people to sell their homes, seeing if they're ready to downsize or upsize. So It's looking up on past clients, trying to find new ones, talking to people about getting their homes prepared and getting pricing. And my buyers, who thank goodness are under contract, which is really hard right now to do, just going through the process of home inspections and because of the crazy offers you're having to make, hoping it appraises and that we don't have to have a big fight about what we offered as opposed to what it's really coming in at value, which Colby knows is a whole other world.
Yeah, so quick question again, for students who don't know what the term means, I want to always define things. So you said making sure the home appraises. So what does that mean when we say appraising a home?
So say you make an offer on a home and everybody agrees $250,000 is what you can afford, what your lender has approved you for, and that is your offer. The mortgage company then, and correct me if I'm wrong, Colby, they don't get to choose the appraiser, but they put in an order for an appraisal to be done. And there is a licensed appraiser that comes to the property, does their magic on location, what the home has to offer, and hopefully says, yes, the home is worth $250,000 and the lender can lend you that amount for the purchase.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So Colby, kind of take it a step further. So Lety's over here helping encouraging right now people to sell their homes and get it on the market. And then somebody wants to buy that home and they say, well, I don't have $250,000 to buy a house. So what, they have to come to someone like you and try to get financing and a loan for that home. So tell us what that process looks like and what you do.
So my job is to get the money. I can help, Lety can help you find the property, but I help you find the money from your first home to your forever home or anything in between. So I do things like I'm going to verify income, your taxes, your bank statements. I have to make sure that everything you're telling me is legit. So I have to go through it all. I examine, I make sure, we even research careers now to make sure it's a legitimate company because we're seeing so many things pop up. But my job is to put it all together in a pretty picture and paint it for an underwriter or a bank. And the bank is going to then approve the loan and then they get the money, they can buy the house.
And what is an underwriter?
An underwriter is another step in the process. In the mortgage, you always see your loan officer, but behind the scenes, there are 20 different other positions. So an underwriter is one that when we get the file together through our processing, the underwriter will actually approve the loan to a particular bank or a particular program and put their stamp of approval on it, and we can close a loan.
So it seems like, your Colby, your work, Lety's work, you have to have each other. You can't
Absolutely.
just be the real estate agent and with no lender on the other side and vice versa. You work like this to make sure that the customer can purchase the home or sell the home. So do you find yourself communicating often between the lender and the agent and back and forth? Colby, are you constantly in communication with real estate agents?
I talk to real estate agents all the time, builders, for anyone doing a longer term build out project right now, and just all different people that are my referral sources. But my phone definitely rings between realtors, agents, and builders.
What about your experience, Lety? Are you just constantly trying to find good lenders and relying on them and just making them part of your process?
You do, and you want ones that have good communication because working with buyers or sellers, either end of it, I'm still talking to the lender. If it's my buyer, I just want to make sure, hey, are they good? Are they going to be able to get this loan? And as an agent with a listing, I'm calling the lender to say, hey, are these buyers that have come to my home, are they solid? Are we going to be able to move forward with the transaction?
Got it. Thank you for that. Let's get to some of our questions. We have some good ones here. I want to take a question from Trinity Hawley, Blacksburg High School. Shout out to Southwest Virginia, teacher Kim Radford. She says, what are some of the common mistakes that first-year realtors make? How can you prevent those mistakes from happening? So looking back on your first couple of years in the business, what are some mistakes that you made that you would share with Trinity and others today?
Communication, definitely key. And when you're unsure of something, it's really important for you to be able to go to your broker or go to have somebody in your office that has experience, that when you're thinking, sometimes you can run into agents that want to bully you because they know you're new. And it's good to talk to somebody with the experience to say, hey, this is happening and I don't know if this is normal or not. And how should I proceed?
Okay, that's great. And you brought up another term I wanted to find, and also was a question from James Myers asked something similar. What is a broker?
So I think it might vary by state.
Sure, in your office.
Right. So as a realtor in Virginia, you're an independent contractor and you go to work for a particular company. And the broker is basically your boss who you go to, not so much that they tell you what to do. It's more there's somebody that you go to for solid advice if there's something going on in a transaction and you're not sure what the next step is.
Okay. Okay, great. And Colby, I know from listening in on a lot of different discussions in our house with mortgage clients, credit scores play a really big role in becoming approved for a loan. That's one component, but it's a big component. What are you looking for when you're assessing a potential client? How do credit scores factor in, and who gets that big loan for a house and who doesn't?
The better your credit score is, the better you'll be. So we look at scores anywhere from my particular company, we look at 620s all the way up to over 800s. And 800 is really where you want to be. So having really good credit management skills now will set you up for the future. And that gives you better rates, better down payment options, better loan options, simply because you've managed your credit. So credit scores, sometimes for mortgages, we're toughest on all the credit scores. There's all different ways out there. You'll see Credit Karma and all the other ones. But for mortgages, we look at a true year trended history. So we're going to be looking on how you pay your bills now, but we're also going to look at how you paid your bills over the last 24 months.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Question here from Frank Calmo Martin, Fremont High School in Oakland, California. What are some challenges this is a question for Lety, challenges to becoming an agent? What are some of the hardest aspects of getting started, starting a business from scratch with no clients, no track record? What was the toughest to sort of get yourself going to a spot where, you can sort of have a year-over-year business you can depend on?
Definitely the hardest part was getting that first person to trust you as a new agent, that you'd be able to do right by them. And thank goodness I happened to have two friends that were moving into the area, and they said they figured I couldn't do too bad, and they used me as their buyer's agent. And it was just getting a little bit of experience. You feel so unsure of any transaction. Just getting two things done and working with my first clients got my confidence up. I used to get nervous just calling an agent to ask them if I could show their property. And now I look back and I shake my head because I couldn't believe how hard it was for me just to make a phone call to another agent because I was so insecure about myself.
Wow. That's great advice. And another really good question here that I wonder about too, Julie Bentley, is a realtor and real estate agent the same thing? No. What's the difference?
A realtor, some of it is money. You're paying to become part of the National Association of Realtors. And when you do that, you're committing to a code of ethics and standards that you are going to do your business by. A real estate agent, not that I'm saying that means they're not going to be good at what their job and working ethically. They're just saying when you take the time to take your yearly classes and your continuing education, that you're trying to make sure you're up to date on everything that's going on. And that's the only way you can be designated as a realtor. You have to keep up your continuing education.
Okay.
A real estate agent just needs to pass the real estate board. There is some continuing education, but it's really about the code of ethics and your business practices that you're supposed to abide by.
Okay. Thank you for that distinction. And let's see, a question here from Alejandro Arellano. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Arellano is, well, let's say for either business, we'll start with Colby. Can you still hear me all right? You're good?
Mhm.
Okay. So how would someone even get started in mortgage lending on that side? How do you even, enter that field? How would you get started? How did you get started? How would you recommend others enter the occupation?
It depends on what you're doing in mortgage. If you did what I did and I became a full loan officer, I actually started under two top producing loan officers and I was their assistant. And I learned everything about the loan process, how to build files, different clients, how to deal with different loan types. So I got that under my belt. So when I was able to come out on my own, I had a lot more knowledge than just coming in and saying, I'm going to be a loan officer.
Okay.
But I made sure I learned the other aspects of mortgage lending. It's just not being the loan officer up front. There's processing, underwriting, a whole secondary team that handles the rates and all the post-closing and post-closing. So there's a lot more than just me.
And what is closing?
Closing is when you go to the table, when you're ready, you go through the entire loan process, your home inspection, your appraisal, the loan, it's all approved and ready to go. We go to the closing table and we sign all the documents. So you're going to sign things like a deed of trust, a note, and other legal documents to say, I'm the owner of this house and my bank is the one giving me the money.
Thank you very much for that. And Lety, there's so many real estate teams. You see them in the news, in the newspaper, online. There's so many teams, so many real estate agents, realtors. If you're looking to enter the field, how do you know which team to approach? Where would you start? How do you break in on that side, kind of finding where you belong?
I would definitely say you can see whose name you see a lot. It's talking to various real estate companies, even going to talk to teams to see what they need and what kind of guidance they provide you. I started out just on my own, jumping in and going. I have a 19-year-old nephew in Colorado who decided he wasn't ready to go to school, so he just wanted to try this out. And I tried to talk him out of it because I told him it's a lot to do being so young. But he interviewed with a couple of different agencies and he's working for a team that's a top producing team in Colorado Springs. And he's getting so much experience because he's doing a little bit of running around, but he's holding open houses and he's picked up some buyers, and it's same thing, having a couple of transactions under his belt. I'm so proud of him. He's so young to be going it, and his confidence really helps and it shows.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. I have a question here from Miss Hendricks, Boston, Massachusetts. Thank you for coming. She said, once you're licensed in one state, do you have to be licensed in each state individually? And then I'll start with Colby on that. How does that work, being licensed? You said Virginia and North Carolina. So how does that work?
I have to go through licensing every year. So when I first got into the business, I had to take a test, a national test, and then I had to take individual state tests. So for me, I'm personally licensed in the state of Virginia and in North Carolina, so I can lend anywhere in those states. If I wanted to go out and get other states, I would have to go out and obtain those particular states licensing, but all I would have to do is take their education.
Okay. And what about on the real estate side, Lety? What about being licensed in different states?
Some states it's reciprocal. So as long as I have a valid Virginia license and all my education is up to date, there's a couple of different states where it's reciprocated. All I have to do is pay for the licensing. In other places, you do same as Colby. You have to take some testing. North Carolina used to be reciprocal for real estate, but now you have to pass the North Carolina licensing because they really do real estate different than Virginia. So you need to know what you're doing.
Okay. And whether you're in high school, you're in college, you're not in school, let's focus on the classroom first. If you're in school right now, what are some good classes you would recommend students take, or topic areas to focus on that might help them in lending or in real estate? Go with Colby first on that.
Financial management.
Ooh, tell me more about that. What do you mean by financial management exactly?
You need to learn how to balance your checkbook, run a budget. You need to be able to know how to obtain a good credit score and what happens when you make a late payment to take your credit score in the exact opposite direction. You need to be able to save money. So it's really important to be able to balance, save, budget, and do your personal finances.
And for the students who have our worksheet, otherwise you can just write this down. One of the questions is, what would our guests recommend you do now as a student to prepare for the field? And Colby just gave us a great recommendation. Understand financial management, personal finance especially. And what would you say, Lety, what would be some of the skills students should be working on obtaining right now?
I absolutely agree with Colby. That in business management, you don't get paid unless you close on a house. You can have 20 things under contract. And believe me, I learned this the first year. It doesn't mean you're getting any money. I've had 5 things lined up and 5 things fall through, and I, in my head, had already spent the money. So you learn quickly to budget. You learn when times are good to save. And you definitely have to learn about paying your own taxes because you're independent. So it looks great at first because you're just getting all that money, but nothing's being taken out. So you got to take care of those things first.
Yeah, that's a great segue. We have a good question here from Wendell Williams, Southfield High School. How do you both get paid? How does this work? So let's start with Lety. Like, where does your salary come from? How do commissions work in real estate?
So as far as Virginia,
Sure.
say you have a transaction for $2,000, and say your commission as the agent for your side, you make $6,000 in commission.
You mean $200,000? You say
A
$200,000?
$200,000 home, $6,000 is what your commission is for the agent.
Okay.
You don't get all of that because most companies, there's a commission split. So your real estate company gets that money and then you get your split. It's your split. So going into companies, some have a 50-50 split. So you're getting $3,000. And as you make more money, they give you a bigger and bigger piece of the pie. But there's other, and they're taking part of that because they're paying for advertising, they're paying for education for you, they're paying for things, and that's why you're giving it. But there are other companies that you get 100% of that commission. It is all yours, but you also have to do everything. You have to get your own signs, you have to pay for advertising, anything you want to do, it's completely yours, and you literally, all you're doing is walking in and have an office space and can say, this is the company I work for, but you have to make sure you pay for everything out of pocket. So it's give and take.
Yeah, that's true. Always want to make sure students are listening hard for numbers. We talk a lot in these webinars about numbers, specific. Students, you heard her say a $200,000 home. What would her commission be, before it was split with her company, this and that? What was that number, that commission she would receive? Tell me in the chat that number you heard. $200,000 home commission would be what? Anybody hear that? There it is, 6,000. Very good. And Colby, explain on your side, how does the payment work? How do you get paid for what you do?
Do you get paid, Colby? I don't know either.
Yeah, Lety can learn too.
Mystery.
Tell us how it works.
I get paid from my company directly. I am not a self-employed employee. I'm actually W-2. It's part of the mortgage licensing for the type that I'm in, being a mortgage banker. So being a mortgage banker, I get paid from every loan that I closed. So I get paid if I close it on May 5th, I'll get paid in June, June 15th. But for me, it's based on a commission scale. So it is straight commission. And the more we close at my particular company, the more that we make off a percentage of a loan. So right now, my volume, if I would be I'm at the top tier, where a $200,000 loan that Lety would make $6,000, I'm going to make $2,000.
Got it.
But I have more opportunity to do other loans besides just purchase and sell business. I'm doing refinances and long-term as well.
And what is a refinance?
A refinance is when you currently own your home and you want to drop the interest rate or take the term out longer, so it lowers your payment.
Thank you very much. How
Or
many
get cash
students?
out.
How many students or teachers found it helpful to understand how you get paid in both, show of hands, how you get paid in both industries? Because it is a little confusing. It's like, well, who's paying you, right? Like, how does this work? It's all happening sort of behind the scenes in some ways. So appreciate you explaining to us from both of your angles how this goes down. I want to take just a quick pause. We're going to do a little writing exercise with everybody that I hope our guests will appreciate too. And then we'll come back, take a couple last questions, and we'll wrap up. So let me do one more screen share here. And I turned on a Word document. Hopefully we can all see this. And this is, again, something that we mentioned at the beginning. I'll mention again, this is one of the worksheets we want to pass along to the teachers. If students could look right here and see this sentence. What do you notice about these sentences? What stands out to you, students and teachers? You look at this email. What jumps out to you right away? We're seeing a lot of what? Capitalization, Wendelin says. So what I want the students to do, or the teachers, you can write it on behalf of the students if they're watching with you. I want you to take this line right here that I've highlighted, and I want you to write, there it is again. I want you to write this line in the chat in a proper sentence with a period. How would this sentence look with proper capitalization and proper sentence structure? Show me what this would be. Give me a couple examples in the chat, if you don't mind, because we always want to stress the value of writing properly in any career field, any job. So let us see a couple of your fixes here, and we'll return to the chat room again. Very good. Now, just a note that company would not be capitalized because we're not talking about like Tidewater Home Funding. We're talking about just the word company in this case. Otherwise, it looks great. Thank you, everybody, for doing this. You know, coming back to our guests, you know, if you want to work with a potential home buyer, either one of you, and your emails look like texting, lowercase abbreviations and all of that, what do you think that would say to your potential customer, your client? Colby, what would that say to them if that's how you wrote them?
It doesn't look serious, and they are making the biggest purchase of their life. So I have to still be as much fun as I can have, but I still have to maintain professionalism. In fact, I write my text like I write an email.
Ooh, and we talked about that a lot in here. And that's one of the worksheets also for the teachers. Texting like we would send a properly written email, just the same. Even, let me ask you this, Colby, even if the person is texting you with abbreviations, emojis, all that, you still maintain professionalism in your text. Because even if they're writing you casually, why do you not do that?
I wanted to make sure I'll still have fun and they'll still get an emoji or a celebration or something like that. But I want to make sure they understand that this is a professional setting in a finance world, that we need to maintain some type of quorum. So I'm not going to be one just to write PLZ for please. Sorry, I'm not as hip as I thought I used to be. And so I would spell it out because I still have the manners and I still want to write properly.
I think that is so important to hear. You know, when business is business, right? And that's just, there's a different set of rules. Lety, same question for you. You know, if you're trying to get someone's business, you need, they don't want to see that abbreviated everything, right? That lowercase everything.
Correct. Same. I absolutely agree with Colby, where you're still having a business relationship. You do get close to people and can, to a certain extent, be casual, but you definitely know the boundaries and you don't want to overstep them so they don't, you want to make sure they take you seriously.
That's right. I think that's the biggest thing. And I like that word seriously, because this is real life. And as Colby said, it's perhaps the biggest financial transaction of your life. So you need to have complete trust in the person on the other end, because this is going to be the next maybe 20, 30 years of your life. Your mortgage payment could last that long. So you have to make sure you trust the person that you've decided to work with. Just before we do a final wrap up, I want to return to what I mentioned at the very beginning for those who missed it, for the teachers, that again, we've put together this packet of free exercise, as we just did one together about capitalizing I. We already got into text message communication, and Colby mentioned that she does professional text, and we say the same thing. So a Google folder of materials, also a checklist of online presentation best practices, all in the same Google folder. And for the educators who missed this at the beginning, here it is one more time. Just type the word interested into the chat with your email address. What we love to do whenever possible is talk for a few minutes, learn about your school and your program, and show you the best ways to implement these resources. So if you missed that at the beginning, here it is one more time. Feel free to enter that in the chat. And then lastly, our final virtual internship of the school year. We'll do it again in the fall. For those wondering, we will resume in August, but we'll take a break for the summer. But our last one will be the world of agriculture, with an interesting couple of guests, one from Butcher Box, which is a meat delivery service, and one, a man who runs his own farm in Oregon breeding cattle. So I know we have a lot of students around the country who are interested in agricultural jobs. So that'll be a good way to finish out the year. And at just our last few minutes here, I want to thank our guests very much for being here. Give us your sort of final thoughts. If you're talking to students who are considering this career field, maybe they haven't even explored it at all yet, what would you say would be like a good first step in both industries, just to kind of get a little more familiar after today? Lety, what would be your recommendation to students?
Oh my gosh, that's big.
How would they
really
just
hard.
just start to like poke around, see if it's for them? They're in high school, perhaps. What would be a way for them to follow up on this conversation and go a little further?
If they're going to stay where they're at, check out how the real estate is going in their area. If it's moving, that's great. It's a great opportunity to get in there. If it seems pretty stagnant, it'll be terrible for you. You're going to sit and not make any money and spend money getting your education, and you've got monthly dues, you got fees you have to pay. Just remember, money's always going out. You just got to make sure you can still get money coming in.
Name of the game, right? Colby, what would you say if students are interested? Maybe they didn't know a whole lot about the mortgage side because this was promoted like, real estate as a topic. So how could they learn more?
For mortgage, there are great YouTube videos out there and great resources, but just going to someone, find a realtor and ask them who their lender is and sit down and talk to them. I can't tell you how many people have asked me, I just want to hear about what you do, because every day is different. Every closing, every loan is different. There's nothing the same. So it's something that keeps it exciting, but keeps you on your toes as well to make sure you have the knowledge of the industry.
I think of just from watching from a distance with mortgages, it's almost like solving a puzzle every time. The client has their own financial history and they want to fit into the house that's worth this much, and there's programs to help them. And do you feel that way, that it's always sort of like cracking the code each time?
It's always cracking the code. You have to be able to problem solve, but you also have to be able to paint the prettiest picture for the bank. It's kind of like a Monet or Picasso. You see it far away, and then when we get closer up on it, it's like, okay, I got to change it. That's how we do.
I love it. I love it. Well, on that, we will start to wrap up in our last minute here. I want to thank our guests. Show of hands, students and teachers. Can you do a show of hands as a way to say thanks? It's like a best we can do with an applause, in our Zoom era. So I want to thank both of our guests for giving really good advice and also just helping us understand these jobs, right? We see them all the time out there in the world, but we don't always know what the inner workings of the business. So I appreciate their taking the time to explain to us. Thank Ms. Nicolette Velasquez for her sign language services. I hope that you'll all join us for our final session in 2 weeks on agriculture. We'd love to have you there one more time. And until then, I hope you have a great rest of your week and next week, and we will see you very soon. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.